Right.
Yeah.
All right, and now we're streaming.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're live. All right, cool.
So this is going live to Twitch right now. Hey gamers. Um,
Hey, gamers.
um, that that's just a joke because it's
Okay,
mostly
yeah.
gamers, but
Right.
like we're not.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't
not
think our audience is
different
gamers. So
feed.
this will get uploaded to YouTube, and then we'll put it on to like different like Instagram and stuff.
Mhm.
But hey everybody. Lewis Weil of Money Positive here. I'm with my friend and colleague Miles Edwards, CPA. We were just hanging out having coffee a second ago, and he dropping by to come talk about tax season.
Mhm.
And what I'm going to say is like how to be ready for tax season. Um, I actually give everyone a quick introduction. Tell them about yourself
All
before we
right,
launch into it.
guys. Miles Edwards, CPA. Been doing it for a number of years now. Helping predominantly artists, creatives, small business folks, do taxes, bookkeeping, the whole shebang. Yeah.
Cool. Uh, yeah, and so a lot of people don't know the difference among the professionals that help with um, taxes and understanding. So my understanding is like to actually do tax prep, you need a CPA or a registered agent, ideally ideally a CPA, in my opinion. And where there's confusion is that I've noticed, and tell me if I'm wrong. Um, a lot of people don't understand the difference between like a bookkeeper and a CPA, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they kind of expect that the CP like a CPA ends up being is the person who actually like can represent you in front of the IRS. Is that
That's
fair?
right. Yep.
Yeah. And a CPA might also do bookkeeping, but I haven't met very many that do because they're so busy
Mm-hmm.
with taxes. So you need either to like have your books done or be working with a bookkeeper, which is where people get confused because they might also call that person an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
Is that due?
Yes.
Because they account.
Yes.
And so, like, the accountant is the person who keeps all your stuff organized and makes sure that your information's correct. And then the CPA is the person who can actually like do your taxes.
Mm-hmm. The way I would describe it is, yes, you're right. So
Okay,
enrolled agents and
enrolled agent.
CPAs,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and tax attorneys are the three
Attorneys.
types of people that can represent you to the IRS if there's ever a question. So we can file a form and then that giving us power of attorney, and then we can speak to the IRS on your behalf if there's any sort of questions or if it were to come to litigation. Um, the biggest difference between bookkeepers and CPAs, I would say, is honestly how much it costs. You can have a CPA do your books, but it is going to be a very expensive thing to do.
Yeah.
So usually, the recommendation is to have a bookkeeper or discuss it with the CPA outside of tax time. Because usually we have folks that work for us, an associate that can maybe help you do the bookkeeping. But once it gets to kind of crunch time, what's misunderstood is I have all these receipts. It's April 1st. You're a CPA. Can you do them? And that's like the most expensive way because you're having us do bookkeeping stuff in our most
When you just show up
physical
with a
time.
box full
Yeah,
of paper,
right, right.
and now you have to go through because if someone's never been, I would imagine there's a lot of confusion around like who to work with it because a lot of people who really, I mean, some people might need a CPA who just have a salary job if their lives are complicated. But most of the time, my understanding is the people who would need someone to help them. If you're just like a salary person with a very simple life, you might not need like a lot of help with your tax prep. It's people who need to um, get deductions, like
Mm-hmm.
get write-offs, which I've seen a lot of misconception around. Um, is the reason you do this, the reason you do bookkeeping is if you're like have a company or self-employed, run an organization, you need to be like itemizing all the things that it takes to um, run your organization. That's the kind of person who needs bookkeeping and then can hand good, well organized information to their accountant.
That's right.
People who Otherwise, most people are just getting the standard deduction.
Yeah.
Actually, will you like describe, like, explain like what deductions are and like what kinds of things can be deducted and like versus what the standard deduction is?
Yeah. So I probably to spare everyone confusion, most people are going to just be taking the standard deduction, which is why that's what Luce is saying. If you spend a lot more money on things like medical expenses, charitable giving, or some other things that go into
Oh, that's
the
interesting. I didn't think about that.
yeah, yeah, charitable contributions, but you have to clear a really high threshold
Isn't
because
it like 12 grand per person or something like that?
yep,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
so
really high.
14 grand per person.
Wow.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and
you'd have to have either spent like done a lot of charitable giving
yeah,
for it to be
and I think
worthwhile.
it's 50. I think a charitable dollar is 50%. So you'd have to do like
Oh,
$28,000
it's not
of
dollar
charitable.
for dollar.
Yeah, it's not dollar for
Wow.
dollar.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, nor is it for the medical deduction. So
Oh,
most
that's a
people, yeah.
bummer.
So that's why like almost nobody, very very few people
Yeah, it's
have
rare.
those.
It's
It's
rare.
very rare. Yeah.
So, okay, but
Yeah,
like
but
like
back to that
mortgage
point.
interest?
Was that
Mortgage interest?
mortgage interest is one. State and local taxes is another, but they cap that at $10,000. So like
Oh,
it's
wow.
tricky to beat that to
So
clear that 15
odds are
thousand.
good if you just have a job
Yeah.
and a salary,
Yep.
you're gonna use the standard deduction. What is it for people with kids? Is there I don't know if you just know it off the top of your head. I'll confess I always have to like Google like Roth IRA limit
Yeah. Yeah.
2023
Yeah. I mean, I always lose
because there's
over
like,
the
yeah, there's
changes.
you, your partner, and any dependents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so dependents, you're eligible for credit, and you're also eligible for some reimbursable expenses for the
I'm going to take a
childcare.
step back and explain what the deduction is, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
confess that I get confused about it. So, does that $14,000 standard deduction, does that reduce your income, your filed income by $14,000, or the amount you owe by $14,000?
I would just your income.
Okay,
That's
so like
your taxable.
if you made $100,000, just to have a nice round number, and you take the standard deduction, you pay taxes on $84,000.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, $86,000.
86, yeah.
Math. I try to never do math in
86,
front of
yeah,
people,
yeah.
so I've
Oh,
always got this.
yeah.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to do is reduce the taxable income, the amount that you are taxed on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's like what an IRA does too. That's reducing that taxable
Right.
income.
So if you contribute, last year the limit was $6,000. So if someone had uh, so in the situation where someone makes $100,000, pretending that's their taxable
Mm-hmm.
income, uh, they get the $14,000 deduction. Then they could do a traditional IRA, which
Mm-hmm.
would lower it by another $6,000. Okay, and again, and then it is a percentage of that income
Mm-hmm.
versus someone who is self-employed. Um, they have expenses in running their business, so they might be deducting things like, so if you have a job, like a salary job, and you work from home, as far as I know, you don't get to like write off part of your rent or mortgage, like your gas driving to or from work.
You used to be able to write off your moving expenses. That was taken away.
Oh,
Yeah. So
bummer.
if you have to move to a new city to start work, you don't get that write off anymore.
Oh, bummer. But versus if you're self-employed, like we are,
Mm-hmm.
like Miles is very nice and treated me to coffee. I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing he's going to write that off later.
Yeah.
Um, so to a degree, I'm curious how much of that you can write off.
Mm-hmm.
But so like the if you had $100,000 in revenue in your business, what you're trying to do is get to the IRS with the smallest taxable income that you can get get away with. Doesn't sound like the right way to say it.
Yeah.
Efficient.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't. So the language that I would use around it is instead of thinking of it as like getting away with it, you're trying to
Yeah.
what you're trying to do is you're trying to look at what actually happened because a lot of things, like a lot of people that come to me, they come in April 1st and they're like, I have a small business, and what do you get when you have a small business and you're providing service? Oftentimes you get a lot of 1099s. 1099s only have the amount that somebody paid you but it doesn't have any of the expenses that went into producing that income. So, for example,
Because
if
it is
I,
just the number like I hired you, I paid you $1,000. I
yep,
tell the IRS, hey, I
I paid
paid
him
$1,000.
$1,000.
Okay.
Yep. So you go into TurboTax or you give to me a thing that says $1,000 and you put that in, but there's nothing. And then I say, do you have anything to offset this? Do you have any expenses throughout the year? And then people are like, I don't remember. And then we just put in the 100,000 or whatever, and that's that.
This is one thing I end up talking about with clients, and I'm sure you experience this every day of like, you can, a CPA can only do the best job with the information you give them.
Yeah.
Like a lot of CPAs I've worked with, they don't have time to like probe and be like, hey, did you, pay for your phone? Did you drive anywhere? Did you
Right.
take any business trips?
Right.
They're like, the information you give them is what they have.
Mm-hmm.
So then people are like, they didn't save me any money. It's like, well, you didn't tell them
Right.
that you did all these things.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to like have good books. How do you be a good client? How do you have a good experience? Because people often ask me like, is it worth, it's usually either side of $1,000 for for a fairly straightforward filing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you make it? How do you make sure that you're gonna like have a good experience with your CPA?
Yeah. So if you have any questions about anything, probably February 28th is like the last day that you can like ask that.
Oh, dang. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
To be a good client.
Yeah.
You want
No,
to be like have a good
I
experience.
get this complaint. People are like, I emailed my CPA and I haven't heard back from him. It's like, do you have any idea how big? Like, your your work happens like twice a year, like the
Right.
personal filing and the business filing.
Right.
Like that's your year.
Well, and there's kind of like a triage of questions that we do, like that we'll take into consideration. So, like if you're like, can you help me figure out how much I spent on coffee last year, and you ask me that on March, 30th, I'm like, I don't know.
I
And
don't
that's
know,
just
man.
something where I'll just like, if I happen to have time, I'll answer that. But meanwhile, I have a bunch of other people who are asking, oh well, we gave birth to a kid, on December 30th. Is that eligible for this, the deduction or whatever? And that's like a much more pressing question because that's one that we couldn't have answered earlier. It's like if there's a question that could have been asked outside of the busy time and it's just like kind of small potatoes, then it's really hard for me to spend that time to figure out
So
the answer to that.
yeah, so now is the time.
Yeah.
Like it's January what, 19th, 20th right now? I don't.
Yeah.
Whenever you're watching this. So right now won't help you if you're watching this in June.
Right. January 20th.
Yeah, January 20th. I should have known.
Yeah.
I should have known. My birthday's in 2 days. So so you need to be like W-2s are going out, 1099s are supposed to be going out. I need to do our 1099s. There's someone out there waiting for my 1099. So you like need to be reaching out now. You need to be asking your questions now. You need to be getting your books organized. I have to reconcile. I hate reconciling. I actually don't understand the like so reconciling is you go through I often have people when they're first starting, like if they're early in their business, like tell me if I'm setting people up poorly. Is like if you're just getting started, like just make a spreadsheet, like record when someone pays you, write down when you spend things. If you only have a handful of transactions, eventually you're gonna need something like QuickBooks. You're either gonna need to do it yourself or get someone to help you with it. Like I've come to appreciate that that's just like the language your CPA speaks is the books that you hand them. Do you usually encourage people to like at what point do you like QuickBooks and do you usually encourage people to start getting set up on it?
Yeah, the reason why I do is because your way that you organize your spreadsheet, even though it might be beautiful.
I'm sorry, I've just seen so many insane
I've seen some of them. And
everyone's
and some of them are like amazing. But
they're incredible. They're incredible, but I have no idea what I'm looking at.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
It's like looking inside someone else's brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
some people are like fuchsia means like a meal outside of like my zip code. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome.
Great.
But like it's also
Yeah.
very costly for me to like figure out
You're
what
hiring
commission
him
means.
hourly. So
Exactly.
yeah, don't
Exactly.
send him a fuchsia
Right. So the
spreadsheet.
great thing is like the people who like make my rules for passing my exam are what QuickBooks follows for producing the reports.
Oh.
So like we're all
Oh, okay.
standardized
Yeah,
that
it
way.
really is the
Yeah, it's a
language.
full standard.
Which, by the way, like that's what a reason. And I gotta backtrack a little bit. I do prefer. I do like find that uh, when I'm trying to like refer people out, if someone has a CP like says CPA, they are a licensed. They
Yeah.
had to take pass a very difficult test, so they are at least knowledgeable and competent.
Mhm.
Like how good they are at communicating
Yeah,
or
exactly.
running a
They might not be
business,
friendly,
but
yeah.
but they know their shit. They know their job.
Mhm.
So that's why I often like, if someone's looking around and they see CPA, it's like, okay, well, at least you have that level of knowledge. I've had some really good experiences with registered agents. No,
Enrolled agents,
enrolled
yeah.
agents. Yeah, enrolled agents can also be really good. They often, I believe, have to have their work reviewed by a CPA before it goes off. Is that true?
So okay, so anyone you don't have to have a license to actually prepare taxes. It's just like a hierarchy of like
Okay.
who's more well versed, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and they only do taxes. CPAs do other things too. That's the difference between us.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm always learning.
Yeah, an enrolled agent can't do an audit. That's another thing. Can't sign off on an
Oh,
audit. We
okay,
can.
okay.
Yeah.
But they can prepare your taxes, but can they like file them for
Yeah.
you? Oh,
Actually, you could file taxes if you wanted
I don't want to file
to. You
taxes.
don't want to, yeah.
I actually did not know that
Yeah.
I could. I thought you had to be at least an enrolled agent.
You know.
I have no desire. Do
Yeah.
not call
You
me for
know.
your taxes. Call Miles. MilesEdwardsCPA.com. Do you have any like coming into tax season? Any thoughts that we haven't shared yet?
Oh, the last one is your HR department, if you have a W-2, is actually a pretty good resource. If anything looks funny on your
Oh,
W-2, reach out to them. And, like, now is a good time to reach out to them as well because they can actually correct something on a W-2 or they can explain it. Corrected W-2s happen all the time. Corrected
oh,
1099s happen all the time.
wow.
Not that they, not that it's good.
It's not
but
uncommon.
but it's not uncommon.
Yeah. So if
It
it
is a
happens
thing.
to you, this isn't a freak
No,
thing.
there is full process for collecting W-2s, and they send it to the IRS, and they have a process for it. So that's a good resource. If anything looks funny, that's good. And then another good resource too is actually like TurboTax has a really good kind of like blog, and like I was just on
I
there.
was not expecting the TurboTax blog.
And
That's
it's
great.
actually really good.
Okay, cool.
Like I was on there yesterday looking at common deductions for musicians. Yeah, it's like that kind of blog where it's like, so you're a musician and you have these questions. So there's a lot of things that you can actually find online without spending a bunch of money.
And I'll use this to like kind of plug you a bit. Miles, like Money Positive also works with a lot of artists. Who are your typical clients? Who are you excited to see in your inbox?
I'm excited to see pretty much anyone, but
Fair.
a typical client I think is
Exactly.
like somebody who's has books or understands that they need them at least. I think that if you're really just starting, I'll be honest, like Lewis was, like you can get away with a spreadsheet and you can like that's almost better because I would rather that you spend the time instead of getting stressed and being upset with QuickBooks. I'd rather you spend the time just doing whatever you can to have some sort of a repository.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes, then you can easily transition that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of your clients are artists and artist organizations.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, if you're an arts organization, if you're an artist, and you're wanting to get your shit together in time for tax season, how do they find you?
You can email me. You can email Lewis. And
I'll email Miles.
That's what
I
works.
probably email Miles several
Yeah,
times a day.
But Miles at
I'm your secretary.
miles@cpa.com or miles@cpa.com is the website.
Nice. Cool, man.
Cool.
Really appreciate it. Send either of us questions. Really appreciate you stopping by. And thanks, y'all. And stay money positive. Bye.